Good evening, folks. I want to, I guess, maybe a good way to say it would be debunk some common issues that I have discovered or heard amongst Christian people. Okay? And they're things that I think should be addressed. I don't hear them addressed very often, and they usually come up as a subject for debate. So I figure we'll go ahead and look at the Bible and see if we can find and cover some of these things. All right. Who can tell me what Sheol is? Okay. Sheol, it depends on where it's used. Sheol actually is two places in one, to be a little more exact on what it is. It was both the temporary hell, it was a place of suffering, but it was not hell. And it was also where Abraham's bosom was, which was where the, I guess you would call them the righteous, went before Christ paid for the sin. Because even those people could not go into the presence of God because they were still not perfect. They were good enough to get there, but they weren't spotless. So this is why I want to read this to you guys, just so you guys can have somewhat of an understanding. It's in Luke 16, verses 24 through 26. And he cried out and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am in anguish in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now here he is comforted, and thou art in anguish. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, that they that would pass from hence to you may not be able, and that none may cross over from thence to us. This was a story that Jesus actually tells in Luke. And he talks about how an old man, or a rich man, had everything, and the beggar, Lazarus, sat outside of his door and begged. And the man never gave him nothing. And they both died. They both went to Sheol. But they were two separate parts of Sheol. You had Abraham's bosom, which is what we call it, and the other is more usually referred to as Sheol, but they basically both were the same thing. They could see each other. They could even communicate because they were in the same place. But there was a gulf, almost like, imagine just an endless pit that one could not cross over. To keep the ones in the hell portion of Sheol would stay in there, the ones in Abraham's bosom would stay there. Of course, why they'd want to go to the other side, I don't know. But mostly it's to keep the bad guys where they're supposed to be. And because it says Abraham says he were in anguish, but he says to cool. So it is a hell. Half of Sheol was definitely hell-like, but it was not actually hell. Hell will not actually be used until the end of Revelation, when Christ separates the sheep from the goats, and then he will send the goats to hell with the Antichrist and the false prophet and Satan. That will be the first actual implementation of hell, at least that I have found. At this point, once Christ died, and this is where the debate came in as to whether or not Christ went to hell for 3 days. He went to Sheol, which, it being two places, he went to the Abraham's bosom portion of Sheol and took those to heaven. So now Sheol is only basically the place for the damned. That's all it is now. Abraham's bosom is empty. It's no longer needed. Abraham's not even there no more. So, I don't know if he just poof obliterated it. The Bible doesn't say. It doesn't really matter. We know there is a place of torment, fiery torment, that is now Sheol, which that's all it basically functions as a temporary hell, until in Revelation it refers it to the fiery lake. And that is hell. And that's where the damned will go at the end of Revelation. Because basically everyone will be resurrected. You will have resurrected to eternal life or resurrected to eternal death. And I'll cover that in Revelation whenever I get to that point. But I came to this because of I'd actually, whenever we first started, you guys remember as to whether or not Christ went to hell. And I told you guys I would look into it. This is what I came up with. And it actually was, and Sheol is mentioned quite frequently in the Old Testament. So it causes a lot of discrepancies when people read it because they see Sheol and they think it's just hell. It was also where Abraham's bosom was, but there was a gulf between the two. And people don't really realize that. So depending on, and as far as I know, this is the only reference to Abraham's bosom having any interaction with the hell portion of Sheol. So it's kind of an interesting topic because if you did not know that both Abraham's bosom and, I'm just going to call it hell for the time being just because I don't know what else to call it. It's the only hell that exists at the moment. So we're just going to go ahead and call it hell. But it's not the final hell. It's not the second death hell. So hell and Abraham's bosom were both Sheol. The reason it actually matters is because if you look in the Old Testament, sometimes it will refer to Sheol, but you would actually have to go back to the Greek to determine which of the two it actually was talking about. Now that far I did not make it. Back to, that's a lot of work, y'all. Do all the Greek translations, it takes a lot of time, and I did not have quite that much enough time to dig that deep into it. So, yeah, anyway, that's Sheol for those of you that were not aware. You are now. Okay, let's see. Aha, this one. Okay. God is a God of love, yes? Endless mercy. I have heard people use the argument, what kind of God would kill children? Now, is everybody aware that he did so? Did he order such a thing? Everybody? When the Israelites took Canaan, came into the country of Canaan that would become Israel, the Canaanites were occupying it. And God said, well, let's just read it. That way, I don't have to worry about saying something wrong. Okay. This is Deuteronomy 20, verses 16 through 18. And this is out of the King James. But of the cities and of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that they teach you not to do all their abominations which they have done unto their gods, so should ye sin against the Lord your God. So, in order to prevent perversion of their walk with Christ, God said, destroy them all. That includes women, children, livestock, grasshoppers, crickets, ants, destroy them all. Maybe not quite the ants and everything, but, their livestock, their cattle, that which gave them food, because they sacrificed those animals to their idols, to their false gods. So God said, I don't want none of it. Destroy it all. Every last stinking thing, kill it. Now, non-Christians have a problem with this because they say, what kind of God, what kind of loving God would tell the Israelites to murder women and children? If you are not prepared with an answer, this answer can catch you off guard. And to me, that's not acceptable. Because everyone should be able to stop, look at this, and realize something. First off, women, I love women. Women, y'all are something else. Okay? Let's imagine for a moment, what all does a Christian woman do for a Christian man? A godly woman, what does she do for her godly husband? She lifts him up. She supports him. She backs him. Right, wrong, or indifferent in front of somebody else. Now, when it's just the two of them, he's wrong and she's right. We know this. This is nothing new. But when somebody else outside of the woman's immediate circle, her world, comes in and tries to threaten her husband, oh no, her husband does no wrong. Apply the same thing to the Canaanites. Their women, they were going to be, if they had let them live, they would have been just as hell-bent on perverting the Israelites' walk with Christ. It happened anyway without them, but it might have been worse with them. So, God ordering the destruction of women and children, the women along with the men, I don't have a problem with this. The women would have been just as guilty as the men. Been noted because they would have been standing right by their men, supporting them all the way. Now the children, that's where the touchy part comes in. This is where we get that fine line that we have to walk, because people will think us cold-hearted, and they'll just add that to the list of things like gay bashers and hate mongers and all the other stuff. Why would God order the destruction of children? Can they not be saved? Can they not be taught differently than what they were being taught? And it's a valid point. That's a valid question. I will agree. But look at it from God's point of view. If I have the Israelites slay them now, before they can be corrupted, before they come to the age of awareness, I get them. I don't have to worry about what they learn from here to here manifesting later. If I have them take them all out now, they're all innocent still. And they get to come to me. All the stuff that their wicked parents were trying to teach them will not come back to basically take their souls to hell for eternity. They get a free pass. And see, to me, the problem is, will a non-Christian accept that as a valid reason? I don't know. I've never found myself in that kind of a conversation with a non-believer. Christians won't actually usually touch on this subject here, just because they can't give a concrete answer that would justify to anybody and everybody why God ordered the destruction of children. To me, that's why He ordered it, because it was the only way those children could be saved, more than likely. I mean, if the Israelites came in, slaughtered their parents and everything they ever knew, what were they going to do with them? Take them into their household? Which, yes, they could have done it. They could have done that. But at the same time, what kind of resentment would have built in those children? You killed my mom and dad. Why in the world would I actually love you? Now, for the babies, those have been the only ones, but you also still have, in effect, generational curses at this point in time. So, the sins of the father, until the child confessed and gave his life to God, would be subject to the curses of the father. They would visit the son. So you have these things they factor in. And for all the things that God looked down and said, I can still have these children, but there's only one way to do it. I have to destroy the parents. And if I don't destroy the children too, they're going to grow up to hate me and be lost for eternity. And God will not that anyone should perish. So to me, it seems pretty simple. They're ending their lives here by God's decree to get them into heaven was His only real choice. It was the best choice. Because now those little kids, all the ones that were not of age, they're dancing, singing, and God right before, or happy forever for eternity with God. They don't have a worry in the world. Honestly, their death here on earth, it was the best thing that could have happened to them. Because of any other scenario, they likely would have turned against God and be burning for eternity. So to me, it just seems pretty cut and dry. It's pretty simple. So, anybody have any different points of view on that one? Sounds good to everybody? Okay. I thought it made sense. Now, okay. If you guys ever find yourself having a debate with somebody about that, stop for about 5 seconds, 10 seconds, talk to God, ask Him to give you the right words. Because even with that information, if you don't go into it spiritually prepared,